Good morning, everybody. Eddie Webb. We are here at the new Media Lab at Mesa Community College. And today we have a very special guest. We have Mesa Community College President, Dr. Tammy Robinson, joining us today. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to spend a little time with you on this Friday.
As everybody knows, we've had this podcast up for a few years now. And just a reminder, we do have a committee of scholars that submit questions. Here we go.
Okay.
In your time so far at MCC, what strengths do you see and what do you see as major challenges for our college?
Well, again, good morning, Eddie. And it's great to be here. It's great to be the president of Mesa Community College. This is my second month on the job. So, I've had a bit of time to survey, and I like to take the time to actually talk to the people here who work here. And what I find is that people love the college. They love the community. When I'm out in the community, people talk about their children taking classes here. They took classes here. And so that's a strength to me. It's not only I work here, but I love this college. I love what it does for my family. I love what it has done in terms of legacy for my family as well, and how it's helped advance the members in my family. And I think that's great. And I see that we have donations and again, put your money where your mouth is. People give at the highest rate of any other college in the Maricopa system. I learned that when I was candidate Robinson, but I see that now as President Robinson. And so I think that is a wonderful strength. And because it's great to work at a place, but you have to show up. You have to show up for the athletes. You have to show up for events. You have to show up for the students. You have to show up for your fellow employees when they have events. It matters so much. And as a new president, I go because I need to see what's happening. I need to see what's going on. And you can't make it up. You have to, it's part of the journey. So I appreciate showing up. I appreciate being invited. And even if I can't come, I still want the invite on my calendar so I can at least try to get there. I try to do as much as possible because I want to increase that level of connectedness that we need in order to move forward as a college. And in terms of major challenges, I think we all have challenges. We're all coming back out of the pandemic. We're coming back into a world being face-to-face, where face-to-face is sometimes the preferred method. And many students, what they want is not only face-to-face, but they want flexibility. Many of our employees also want to be face-to-face, but they also want the flexibility. So in terms of a major challenge, it is really important that we balance this. That we balance and learn from what happened in the 2 years that we were sheltered in place, that our campuses were closed. What did we learn from that? And so let's not just kind of push it under the rug and move forward like it didn't happen. It helped us to do a lot of good. It helped us to reach our most vulnerable students when we should have been doing a lot of that work before the pandemic. It forced us to do the pandemic in order to keep going. So a major challenge in a nutshell is, how do we create balance? How to create MCC as a great place to work, which is our strategic goal number 3. That is a major challenge because again, as people love the institution, we have been through something major. In leadership, you have to figure out how to be graceful and have humility and be humane in how we talk about what our college will look like, what flexibility means for both our employees and our students. So it's a challenge that is individual and kind of, you want to do a broad stroke and say, oh, it's going to look like this. But again, it's still ever changing, and we have to be okay with functioning now in a space where it's hard to be definitive in your answers. You have to continue to be flexible. So having to be flexible is a major challenge, but it's a challenge we all should be willing to face. I certainly am.
Thank you. I think, I don't know from the employee response as much, but I would guess it's the same. But I do know. I've always had an open door policy when I'm teaching, and I love it when a chair or a dean or a president walks by, steps in, says hello. The part that folks in those positions don't always get to see is the energy it brings to the class after you've left. I mean, students feel valued. They feel touched by you. I just think that's a really important dynamic, in a college is to, Laddie Kaur, everybody knows from ASU before Michael Crow. He was that guy. He would walk around campus. He'd shake your hand. He made you feel welcome personally. When that person exits the room, the energy left behind is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I really appreciate seeing you around. Coming from all your years of experience in education, what kind of cool programs and departments have you learned about here at Mesa Community College?
Well, I always like plug this area because I don't think they get enough love. I learned a great deal about our allied health programs. I had a walk through the nursing program, and what was interesting about that program was how during the pandemic they continued to do clinicals, and so it's many layers in order to do. If you've ever done an allied health program, ever, like when I say that, if you ever created one, gone through the curriculum, gone through accreditation for one, it's really difficult to make changes to that system, And so what was wonderful was to hear all of the flexibility they had in keeping those students moving forward, teaching them, making sure they got a pristine, very rigorous education, even if they couldn't walk into the hospitals. So it was just exciting. Another area is the art department. I can't, kind of give it accolades enough. I've seen about 3 or 4 exhibits in my 2 months. I saw some when I was candidate at Robinson, beautiful. I saw a high school exhibit when the semester first started and the summer was in the summer. And I also, last week or so, attended a faculty exhibit. And it was wonderful. And again, what's funny is they saw me like taking my time to look at the pieces. And they're like, "You like art?" I'm like, "I do. I like art. Doesn't everybody like art?" I mean, it just kind of doesn't everybody like art? I don't like blank walls, and so I'm in the process now of going through the catalog to update and change the art in the president's office and the president's suite. I would really like to showcase as much student art as possible. In my opening piece, my welcome speech, I highlighted Antoinette Colley, and I really had a chance to meet a former MCC student, and with that, I just absolutely, and this is the thing, like you said, walking into the classrooms, students don't realize how they affect us too, right? And so, and the reason that I wanted her to be part of my welcome was because I'm new here, but she isn't, and she epitomized every area on this campus, the enrollment services. I talk about enrollment services because we spend a lot of time in the classroom. Students are in the classroom for 4.5 months or so, anywhere from 5 weeks to 4.5 months, depending on the semester. And sometimes longer than that, depending on the type of program they're in. So they spend a lot of time in front of faculty. Those who get missed, the veterans office gets missed. The enrollment, the advisors, the counselors, the folks who help you through your application, they get missed. Because once you get through that process, you're like, yay, yippee, and you move on. And as you're supposed to, but then it is incumbent upon the rest of us to thank those folks, because we wouldn't have students without them.
Right.
They wouldn't make it to the classroom. They wouldn't make it to the bookstore. They wouldn't make it to financial aid. So they have to come through the front door, whatever that front door is. If that front door is online, if that front door is a physical front door where they walk on campus and come, they've got to get through whatever our front door is. So we need to applaud that. So what I saw, because I've taken a few trips to different areas, and what I saw when I walked in there was a lot of love, a lot of caring. If I saw someone who was struggling, of course it's the president, right? Some of them know me, some of them don't. I'm still like, People,
Incognito.
yeah. Well, a student walked up to me yesterday, and he was like, "Well, what's this? I said, well, what's going on?" And I got up because I was trying to like grab a quick bite, of the food that they had at the Native American event yesterday. And so he just walked up to me. And if a student walks up to me, I generally will stand up because I'm thinking, right? They recognize me and they want to talk to me for a second, right? And so he was like, "No, I don't want to talk to you. I just want to know what's going on in here." So I think it's funny because it keeps you humble, right?
Yeah.
People still don't know who you are. And so I just walked away and shook my head. But I always get a little giggle about that. But I really believe that we have excellent programs here. I am and I work closely again with the workforce development programs, and I have a strong workforce development background because I believe that no one comes here and not wanting a job, right? No one, whether it's I work for myself or whether I work for a company, whether I create something, whatever, you're coming here, regardless of your major, regardless of your intention. You are coming here so that you can take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your community, and you want to get a skill to do that. So again, it's so important that we look at our workforce development programs, look at our partnerships, and the strength of them in the community, and that MCC continues to be the force that it has been in the past and will continue to be in the future under my leadership. So the willingness here, I see a lot of willingness on this campus to continue to be great, and I truly appreciate that. Thank you.
I think some of that is getting into a part of our second question or third question. But I want to touch on the art part for a second because, I tell my students all the time, in 500 years, the anthropologists, whether they're cultural or physical anthropology, they don't dig up the accountants. They dig up the artists.
Yeah.
They dig up the artists to find out.
They tell the story.
Right.
They tell the stories.
Yeah. What was going on with these shopping malls, So I think art, expression, creativity, is the highest form of intelligence. In my dad's tribe and in our language, they say "osta da'iga," the violence is the lowest form of your intelligence. So yeah, let's art this place up. I know we have a project somewhere we used to do with the murals that are around campuses. But you touched on a little bit of our next question here. I've always thought it to be personal responsibility to show up, but one of the questions one of our folks wanted is there any sort of strategy to start to bring employees together in terms of around morale and make sure people have the energy they need to meet the leadership goals that you'd like to see?
Right. So that's a major issue that I've also uncovered, and just folks just telling me that a lot of it too may have been there before the pandemic. It may have been there already, but I think the pandemic exacerbated many things, and it disrupted many systems, and some of that's really good because we can't get to better. We can't get to healing. We can't get to a better work environment unless we call it out. Whatever it is, we have to talk about what it is, and whether that's presence and acknowledgement. One of the things that when I did my welcome message, my theme was connectedness, and I was like, people are like, what's that? And I was like, well, we've been disconnected, and now it's time for all of us to lead with grace, humility, love, and forgiveness. And part of what I'm saying that means is everyone experienced the last couple of years differently. Some people didn't lose anyone. Some people lost a lot of people. Entire families were lost. There was a period during the pandemic where I swear I was losing a person a month. It's like every month it was somebody else. And that does take its toll on you. And so it takes a toll on your morale, your mental health. It takes its toll. And so as we return, we still have to lead with grace. We do. We have to still continue to give people grace. We have work to do. We have a lot of work to do as an institution. But again, we have over 2,000 employees here at Mesa between our 3 sites and 2 campuses. And it's important for me as the president to recognize the human nature of people. And sometimes simply showing up and saying hello and listening to people's stories helps morale. One of the things that I was told when I left my previous institution was that I made people feel seen when for years they hadn't felt seen. And I'm a true believer in the ecosystem of our institution, but the ecosystem must be fed, it must be watered, it must be cared for. It cannot be something that you just, because people get a paycheck, it's going to happen. People have to feel a part of something, and hence my theme of connectedness. I need to feel connected to something. Students will stay with us. Why? Because they feel connected to Mesa. Our employees will stay. Why? Because they feel connected to this place. They checked on me when I was sick. They got me lunch when I forgot my lunch at home and I didn't have enough money. I mean, that happens to all of us. That can happen to any one of us, president included. Oh my God, I left my wallet. Oh my God, I'm starving. I only have $5 and I forgot, whatever. I mean, it can happen to any of us. It can happen to the most vulnerable, but no one is excluded from needing help and needing care and needing someone to just say, hey, how are you today? I mean, and it's not perfunctory for me. It really isn't. I really do want to know I'm in a new role, but at the same time, I want to know who the people are here at the institution. And I think that helps morale, because I can't speak to any person who served as a president before me, which is why in my welcome message, I said I had to apologize for the hurt that people have experienced, because when you're not listened to and you have pain, it decreases your morale. You work, but you don't work at that same speed that you used to. You don't do it as quickly as you did before because you don't feel valued. So when we talk about retention and we talk about morale, you can't. I don't think we can move forward if I did not address it. I really believe that folks would continue to want to either leave the industry, leave the college, leave the district, because they're just human beings, and human beings need to feel as though they're valued. And so thank you, because I could go on
Yeah.
that one, because
Yeah.
that's a big one for me. That's a big one for me.
Well, I think it is important, and your level of insight, I think, is really going to be beneficial to the community as a whole in this area. I see it too sometimes as, if you look at the system. So
Mhm.
we podcast with the chancellor on Monday or Tuesday on the 4 disciplines of execution that he's going. And I told him, I read the book. I found the word academic in the book twice, that the model is designed for a private sector to increase revenue. So what are our revenue markers? And I listed them out, tuition, taxes, private funding, how do we, going to measure our revenue increases if we use this private corporate model of governance? And we had a really good discussion about that. But in terms of, what you're talking about, there's the human factor. Me as a human being, ani huia is what we say. And, there's that factor that it's just decency should be just a part of who we are. But I think when we're 48th in funding and education in the United States, and I think sometimes I having built a program over many, many years, sometimes I think about it as like a body. If we looked at the system as a body instead of said body instead of system, it's almost like we have issues of poverty. We have amazing, talented, gifted, high energy people, but we don't always have the resources to make what they're wanting to do work. or we have to cut back over here. And I think those are the morale issues I think that people struggle with that go, and we don't talk about it in a way. And I hope that the governing board, when I say I want our president to be successful or whoever, when Dr. Gonzalez was thinking about taking the chancellor position, the question was, I'll do it, but you have to give me the tools I need to be successful. And I think as you go through the chain, the same way with a teacher, we just need the resources we need to be successful. If we're going to modernize and create new curriculum and deliver that curriculum in a way that makes sense for people that need a job now, the skill sets that they need, the technology part, the creativity part. And so all of those things are coming together. And at the end of the day, do we have enough resources, the dollars, and how dollar converts into hours and all that. And I think that's the part I hope in the next 5 years we correct in this state as a whole, is to give our community colleges the resources they need to be competitive, be successful. So are there any kind of new perspectives how you want to engage in our community?
I think it was my first week or maybe early part of my second week. And I continue to mention Deanna Villanueva because I think she's a gem in the institution, in the district. And she just put me in the car. I mean, I had all these tours, right? All these tours, and I really try to get through them, but I stop and talk to people, and they have 6 sites. I get to 2, and, well, we're going to keep going. So one day, went into the community with Deanna, and it was about an hour and a half. It was about 90 minutes or so. And she drove me, she drove my chief of staff, Juan Diarte, around. And it was really important. What was important, what was also quite shocking, was how close poverty is to the campus when you speak of poverty, but as you did before. And they have about a 91% student lunch, with a free lunch program is instituted to about 91% of the students. So that tells a big story right there. The part that is most debilitating for me was the fact that even with their poverty, they didn't see MCC as their campus, as the place for them. That hurts. That it hurt in a really deep, deep place. So I went into several sites, and one site in particular that I always talk about is the We Can organization, and it's run by New Leaf. One floor of it has rental assistance, utility assistance, immunizations, anything that you need to get help, like with your living situation. There's a few people there. I wonder how many people know about it, but they're there. The second floor was a classroom with a beautiful kitchen, supplies, business clothes closet. So if you didn't have a skirt or a jacket or pants or shoes, mascara, feminine products, socks, they had it for you. And it was beautifully presented in a way that there's no shame attached to the need, right? They had a kitchen where you could come in and get snacks and sit down. If you didn't have Wi-Fi at home, they had computer stations, and you could sit down and do your homework, and tall tables, short tables, hotel stations. It was just really a beautiful space. They had literacy, financial literacy, if you needed assistance there. And who doesn't need assistance there continually throughout life? Who doesn't need it? So in engaging with that system, I didn't see our name on the board. I didn't see Mesa. I didn't see Maricopa on the sign. And they're about 3 miles from, less than 5 miles, I'll say, from our camp. And so when I talk about what activities that I want to engage in, I really want to engage in, when I talk about the ecosystem, and the ecosystem includes our community. It includes employers. It includes our nonprofits. It includes places where our people will actually go and feel safe, right? If the students in the community will feel safe at their Boys and Girls Club, then that's where we need to be. If they feel safe at New Leaf and at We Can, or We Mesa, I know I'm getting the name wrong, but they know who I'm talking about, then that's where we need to be. everyone doesn't want to go to school as long as I did. I have 4 degrees. And folks, my brothers, I have 6 brothers, and they used to laugh at me all the time. You always going to be in school, Tammy. You just always going to. I mean, literally, in many of our households, when you come from certain backgrounds where education really isn't taught it. I mean, my mom went to the 9th grade and then went and dropped out of the 9th grade and then went back and got her GED at 30. She was really big on education because for her, who would she have been if she had been allowed to go to college at 19 as opposed to going back in her 30s and 40s? What would she have done differently? What choices would she have made differently? And so she mirrors, our lives mirror a lot in our community. So when we see our nonprofit partners and our employers, they need to be part of the Mesa Community College ecosystem where all of it's part of the college. The physical campus is just one site. We have many sites. We have satellite sites throughout the city. So you always feel connected to us in some way. So those are some of the things that I'd like to really engage in my time here. Again, I've been here only 10 weeks, and I feel I'm making a lot of headway. It would be interesting to see what it looks like in 2 years, because community engagement to me is extremely important, and it is the only way we survive going forward to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I love that word balance, of course. And I never really did understand these choices we were making when we would hire a president or a vice president, an inward president or outward president. It's like, I think you're supposed to have both. Strike that nice balance. And again, have the people around you. There's so much talent around you. When I first read Kennedy's book, Profile Encourages, one of the lines that stuck out to me is where he said, if I'm going to be a successful president, the only way I'm going to be a successful president is to make everyone around me successful. And then I become a successful president. But I love this, knowing our community. Anything around like mental health literacy that you've engaged in? Or any plans around that kind of?
Well, I haven't started a campaign on that yet. I will get to that. However, I appreciate more funding around mental health. I appreciate us talking and even making it a question, because I used to say all the time, and I don't want anybody to get mad at me, but I used to say it's easier to be cut or have a broken arm, right, than it is to have a mental health issue.
Yeah.
Because if I'm cut, you see the blood, you attend to it, like, oh my God, this person is bleeding. If it's broken, I don't know if you've seen a broken arm. My daughter broke her arm at 7. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but when you see it, you know it's a broken arm. I mean, whoa. So you attend to it, right? I rushed her to emergency. We got it reset, and boom, she's okay in her little cute pink cast at the time. But when you have mental health issues, you can't see them, right? You can't see the manifestation of it until somebody does an act that's outside of our behavior scope, right? And so it is so important that we take care of mental health issues long before they become something that is a behavioral problem. And part of that is sleeping, right? Just like I didn't realize, because I used to operate on about 3 hours of sleep for years, because that's all I needed. I'd grade papers late. When I was a professor, I would get up at 3:42 in the morning. I'd be at the gym at 4:15. I'd work out from 4:15 to about 6, 5:45, 6. Get dressed, get my girl to school, me to school, and the day is started. But it started at like 3:40, and that was normal for me until I got physically sick, and then I had to redirect. And so we need to take mental health seriously. And, we need to incorporate times, for people to meditate and have spaces for them to do so freely and safely. And again, this is something that as a campus, we must support, as a community, we must support, because it it is an issue for all of us. It's not just some of us. We all have a bad day. We all are anxious. We're tired, sometimes exhausted, fearful. Someone in your family is ill. I mean, we're all going through mental health issues on a daily basis. It's how it is viewed and looked at, and it's how we care for each other. So it really is important that we take it very seriously.
Yeah, I agree. Very, 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 very important area. The New Media Lab is currently working with Maricopa Disability, interviewing people that are speaking about their mental health issues and how they cope and how well we've actually done supporting them. When you come in as a new president, you have to look at the structure that your previous president has created.
Mm-hmm.
How delicate or important is that to understand the previous structure and the transition of making it your own? We saw yesterday throughout the internet that you had set out a new structure to your cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a little bit about your thinking around, people have been operating in this one structure,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're here and you want to put your stamp and signature on
Mm-hmm.
something new and fresh. What is your process of that?
Thank you for that, and it's timely, being that the email came out last night, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, part of what I stated in the letter that was published yesterday was that the structure was confusing to me. And in my first couple of weeks, I'd start my day at about 7:30 on campus, and I was in meetings from 7:30, 8 o'clock until 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it was the same people. So I was really trying to figure out what was different when I sat over here, what was different than when we met over here, and what was different, right? And then I saw that, again, it was many of the same people in the same committee. So I just started looking at things like, say for instance, cabinet. I was like, so why is cabinet structured like this? And, I had 2 faculty reps, but I didn't have any other reps. So I didn't understand it. So part of it is I'm bringing forth, I have almost 30 years of community college experience. I've been doing this work for a really long time. And what I saw I did, just talk to the team a little bit about it. What I talked to them about was all of this duplicative work and how exhausting duplicative work is. And once we meet like all day, how and when do we have time for one to process what we've talked about doing? When does that happen? And when does the work actually happen? Because it just seems like we're meeting all day. And I don't think it's a bad thing to meet. It is important for us to have touch points. It's important for us to hold ourselves accountable. But we also have to be sure that every time we meet, it is meaningful and is purposeful, and we know the why. So in putting the new structure together, I really wanted to have representation so that when we start any new campaign, and as you know, we have the bachelor's degree work coming upon us. Can we say it together, like in one space, and then folks can go off into their groups, do the work, come back and report it back in one space? Is that something that makes sense? I'm not afraid to mess up. I'm not afraid to tweak it. But it was so much duplication that I didn't understand it. And it was like we were exhausted for no reason. So incorporating the new structure, to me, put people in the space who weren't in the space before. Like philanthropy. I wanted philanthropy in the space. Why? Because if they're out talking, if that group, Christos, is out talking to AT&T and talking to the mayor, why can't he hear it firsthand so that he can understand why we're going in the direction we're going in, right? We have about $200,000 towards our promise students for next year. And a lot of that is because Christos worked with the mayor and worked with our community partners and raised the money. Again, it happened But let's see what happens when we do have a little bit more synergy with our work and not we're still going to have a lot of meetings. It's impossible not to have a lot of meetings. It's impossible, especially a college this size. It's impossible. But again, can we move away from them being duplicative?
That's great. I think the former president said that sort of the same thing. He would have a meeting with this delegation or this group, and then a scheduled meeting with another group, and he would get up, and the same people just get up from one room and walk into the other room. It was the same people. Could you talk to us a little bit about the distinction between being an administrator
Mm-hmm.
and being a leader, and how those cross?
Well, they're very distinct. They're distinctly different, right? When we're talking about your campus administration, you really are talking about people and their titles. And that's a way for all of us to understand, like, we have a president, we have vice presidents, we have directors, we have managers, we have, again, those are distinct titles that we carry. And it's so you can be accredited. It's so that you can be a college. There are many, many functions to the titles, right? But when I think we make a mistake by putting them together, right? Because you would assume that if you're an administrator, you are a leader. You make the assumption that you must be the president, so you must be a great leader. But we know a lot of folks aren't great leaders. I mean, I'm just saying, a lot of people have the title, but they're not great leaders.
Right.
A campus, or any campus, especially a campus the size of Mesa. Again, in my welcome speech, I brought Antoinette Colley in for multiple reasons. And one of those reasons was to showcase excellence, to showcase Black girl excellence, as we call it in the Black community. Because someone from her trajectory is just, she's not supposed to be working in Berlin as a resident artist. It's just not something that they wake up thinking about, right? And they see it. So she created a whole new reality for herself. I wanted her to tell her story and I wanted the entire campus to hear it, because no one person contributed to her success. The president didn't contribute to her success. The vice presidents didn't contribute to her success. Not one professor, not one major, not one person in the enrollment center contributed to her success. And I say that because we have thousands of students on our campuses, and each and every day that they walk up, and just like the student said to me, "What's going on in there?" One day he'll see something and say, "Oh my God, I was talking to the president and I didn't even know it." Right? One day he'll say that. And one day he might see me on campus and say, "Can you help me?" Right? Can you help me? I think leadership, we have to really open that term up, because we call it campus leadership, but campus leadership of what? We have to finish the sentence. What are you a campus leadership of? Because when we have a leak, we call our leadership team in the M&O, right? I met Mr. Smith yesterday, who had been here for 43 years. Shout out to him. When something is going on in the classroom, student can't get a class, we're calling Lucy over in enrollment. We're calling Warren in the enrollment center. When somebody needs some tests, we're calling Conrad over in the testing center. Can you help them through this orientation or this work? Everyone here has the potential to be a leader, and they probably are. Every position is not student facing, though. But if you're walking from your car to the building, and that's the president and everybody else, and a student says, "Do you work here?" They're not going to ask you what your title is. And you're not going to say, "Well, I'm the president, so I don't really show students around." That's not what I do. Nobody's going to say that. At least I hope they won't. Please, God, don't. But I think that we take leadership roles for granted, and what that looks like. Getting to know students, helping them is, you said it earlier, is basic human decency. So let's not lose our basic human decency. And, again, leading with our humanity is so very important. When we think about policies, the reason that, again, I'm going to go back to the earlier question about the reason that I changed the structure. Part of that is because the academic calendar is, if you haven't planned it out, it's hard to get things done. And people don't realize how fast it moves, right? Once August hits, it moves. And so I say that because when we make a decision to do something, I need the players, I need the leaders in the room so that they can, to the best of our ability, we can decipher impact of the decision. If we do this, what's going to happen? I don't need everyone saying it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Mhm.
I need people to say it might work. However, we need to think about this. I don't know. We did try that 10 years ago and what happened, you know? And so I think what we've lost in leadership over the past several years is the ability to be disruptive with each other, respectfully.
Right.
The ability to dissent respectfully.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we need to be able to disagree respectfully.
That's right.
It's not negative that I don't agree with you.
Right.
I don't agree with you.
Right.
I have over 30 years of experience. I'm coming into the room with this, and that background. I understand this community that we say we want to reach out to. I'm telling you that's not going to work. So why not listen to that one person before we put money,
Right.
time, effort, and all we had to do is listen to this person and say, well, what would work? And sometimes it's a simple tweak.
Right.
Have the student look up instead of look down. How about that? In the ad. So when we talk about what leadership is, I think we have to lead from where we are. We have to own it. We own decisions, but we also have to give people agency to make decisions. When we talked earlier about morale, that's another thing that I heard a lot. It's like it's hard for people to make decisions. And so I started making decisions and it was like novel. I said, why is that a big deal that I said we're going to do this? So again, I'm just leading from who I am. This is who I am. And I feel as though not only do we need to do things, but we need to be impactful in what we do so that if it turns out great. But if it turns out that it's okay, but it needs to be tweaked, let's talk about what the changes need to be. So leadership and administration don't necessarily mean the same thing.
Well, I cannot agree more. And I think this leads into our final segment here around the 4-year degree and the 4-year culture that we're going to need to support a 4-year degree. And I think that the 4-year degree may open up opportunity because of the new faculty and the environment that we're going to have to create around a 4-year degree as opposed to a 2-year transfer degree or occupational. So I'm real excited about the 4-year degree stuff. I can't wait to, for that culture to start happening.
You want to know what I think about it?
I want to know what you think about
it. Okay. I was very fortunate to get my degrees and all my degrees are in California. You mentioned earlier that I'm both a Bruin and a Trojan. So I call myself a Brosian. Made up word that I made because my undergrad is at UCLA and my doctoral work is at University of Southern California. So I can't call myself. I have to call the the Bruin has to come first, right? So having gotten those degrees and having student loan debt and but also getting financial aid and also utilizing the GI Bill because my father was served in the Air Force. All of those things helped me get through college. When I went through UCLA was under $500 a quarter. Yeah, under 500, right? When I got my doctorate at USC, I finished that in 03, 04, so it's been about 20 years. It was $857 a unit, which was a lot of money. You're almost talking $900 a unit, right? But that's a bargain compared to what students are paying now. So when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the high cost of getting a college education makes it so that it becomes exclusionary. not inclusive anymore. It's very exclusionary. You have to either be really, really poor to go or really, really rich. But the folks in the middle were getting squeezed out. And they're getting squeezed out to a point where they just have to take on these astronomical student loans. And so to get through, to become the doctor they wanted to be and become the attorney they wanted to be, and all of these wonderful things that people go to school to become, such as myself. So having it at the 2-year institution, it's already a reality in California, where initially there were 15 colleges that had the bachelor's degrees. And what we found was that the bachelor's degree could be earned completely. It was under $5,000, something like that. It was, and I always say under 10 because there's always fees and driving and the true cost of education. Right. But when you're talking about, say, under 10 grand, you can get a bachelor's degree that is from an accredited institution, when it would cost you $40,000 to $60,000 to attend, say, a UC, or a private institution would cost you $60,000. That's cost prohibitive for so many students who deserve to go to college if they want to. And so having a 4-year degree at the 2-year institution is about as big an equity move as we can make. The next step, of course, is to be sure that students get out on time, that they get the classes they need, that they have appropriate faculty. All of those things are taken care of as we're going through the accreditation cycle in the next month. So those things have to be in place. But we also want to be sure that we're publicizing that this is even available. So it's a culture shift, right? It's a culture shift when we're living in the land of the NAUs, the ASUs, and the large 4-year institutions, where folks grow up saying, that's where I'm going to college. I'm going to a 4-year. And it's always been difficult for community colleges to even get folks to want to complete an associate's degree. And now we're saying, culturally, we're making a shift saying, but you can get your 4-year degree here as well. So one of the things that we have to ensure that we do is make sure that it's easy to get through the process. And so we're going to have forgiveness here because it's our first time. So those that come through, they'll have to hold our hand. We'll have to hold each other's hands. They're going to hold our hand. We're going to hold their hand. We want them to be patient with us. We need patience and some grace and humility. But it will prove to be one of the most revolutionary moves that we've made in a very long time.
Yeah. Because
it will, again, it's about educational access. And to have this opportunity and access, which so many do not have, it will be absolutely incredible. So it is a wonderful thing for us to do this. We just want to do the best job possible. We want students to come and to participate in this process. But again, it is an equitizer for education, which is so very important, especially during these times.
Yeah, I'm just so excited for this to happen for all the reasons
really
that
excited.
You just mentioned. Growing up in the city parks and playgrounds in Los Angeles, one of my favorite sayings I remember hearing in flag football was John Wooden, who said, "You're either preparing for success or you're preparing for failure." Mm-hmm. And I've always loved that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played football in Southgate. I caught the winning touchdown pass when I was in the 9th grade.
Oh, I played adult flag football.
You did? Oh, yeah.
Mixed flag.
Co-ed. You a running
football.
Back or a linebacker?
I would. A woman had to run. Every third play, a woman had to run it, kick it, or throw it. So I had a nickname at that time, and my nickname was Mini Rice.
All right.
So I could run it, kick it, or throw it. I had a great time. I did that for a couple of years. It was fun.
Well, I wish I missed our football teams. I mean, football taught me everything I know about life. Like I said, I caught the winning touchdown in Watts, California.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And see how you never forget those things? You never forget those moments.
Well, the problem was when I was in the 8th grade, I was exactly the same height as I am now. And then I just stopped growing.
Oh man,
So I was like,
they thought you were going to the NF.
Oh.
Oh, you going? Oh, you going, man?
yeah, this
you
guy's going. And
You good height though. Come
Yeah,
on. But in
yeah.
the 8th grade, you were huge.
yeah, in 8th grade, I was already 5'10".
Oh wow, you were
5'10"
huge.
and a
That
half.
was huge.
And yeah, I just never.
You stopped, though.
Just stopped. That was it. But I just, I love, I think, the access into great programs and great people. But, when you take people's money, you need to be prepared.
That's right.
So I know you all got this. I'm excited for the culture. Of
Absolutely.
The 4-year agreement.
Yeah, the culture shift.
I
is
want to
important.
have colleagues that I'm a reader.
Mhm.
I read lots of books. I'm a global learner. I love to engage with people on that level,
Mhm.
and so I'm really, I hope that that's what happens as we create this excitement around the 4-year degree that brings in a bit of that environment.
Absolutely.
Because, when you talked about earlier, folks, like I remember because of my brothers and the neighborhood we grew up and stuff, I used to read books and hide them
Mhm.
because I didn't think, that, I'm a linebacker. I'm supposed to, I'm
Well,
supposed
I
to
mean,
be a
that's the
tough
problem.
guy. Yeah.
When you really liked school, but it wasn't, but in non-westernized cultures, you have to kind of hide that because you have to fit in, and that's the misnomer. You'll make an A on a test, and your friends will say, "What did you make?" "Oh, I made a C." So because you don't want to call attention to you.
That's right.
And very different from our westernized brothers and sisters who very much compete with each other.
That-
And so, so I did some research on that when I was working on my doctorate.
Yeah.
And many of our students are not, our minoritized students practice non-westernized culture traits, even though they've lived here for generations. Competition is not something that we revel in especially African-American homes. It's like, what, you think you're better than us? I mean, again, I got that, I'm a lot older than our students, but I got that, and so you learn how to blend in a little bit when you're home. And so students who actually do well in non-white homes and non-Asian homes are those that can code switch. And I know Henry Louis Gates talks about that. You're able to shapeshift in a way. Like I can speak in one way when I'm in this space. I speak in another way in a different space, depending on my audience. And I do it seamlessly, right? I do it seamlessly. So those students who are able to live in all cultures quickly tend to do better statistically. Some folks don't switch as easily. They switch. They have to, right? You have to live in society. But it's when you think about it, it's kind of sad, but it's
real.
But it's real. And so let's talk about what's real.
Yeah. We always give our guests the last word. What'd you like to say to everybody? Maricopa fam.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you, Eddie Webb. Thank you, Keegan. You always take such good care of me when I come. I want to thank everyone for the warm welcome that I'm getting. Again, this is the end of week 10. I'll stop counting soon, but I still want to remember. And like you said, I'm counting because I still want to remember what it was like at week 10, what it was like at week 11. Because when it's year 4 and year 5, you're not counting in weeks anymore, right? Now you're in the seat. So there's still a level of newness to the role, and I'm still learning. And I want to thank everyone who assists me. I have an excellent mentor, the president of Chandler Gilbert, Dr. Greg Peterson. He is an excellent mentor. He's there when I call on him. The other presidents, Eric is just great. Whenever I call him, he picks up. The chancellor I had never experienced the level of humanity that I'd gotten from him. And I don't think I told him that, but, he would call and check on me like a few weeks before I came. I hope you're doing okay. And then when I started, I hope you're doing okay. That's simple, right? And basic, right? But it doesn't happen. So it's so funny when we do the kind of kind human things, how like amazing it is now, because we have all this technology and all these ways to connect, but yet we don't use them, right? So I really want to appreciate our chancellor, Dr. Gonzalez, for making me feel welcomed, giving me the level of agency and things that I need. I want to thank our board of governors. We had an event last week that I don't know that we all can wrap our brains around how amazing it was, because I was only here 9 weeks then. So I met with the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, had a chance to talk to her, and that's amazing. You know, your 9th weekend. She was like, I thought you were here 9 years. I said, no, I just got here 9 weeks. She says, this is amazing for you. I said, yes, it is. I had a chance to meet Wendell Weeks, the CEO of Corning, and John Stankey, the CEO of AT&T, and talk about the great opportunities that are coming to Arizona and how Mesa Community College and Chandler Gilbert will be at the forefront of the training for these programs. Fiber optic program that we will be bringing to the institution is on track to have 850,000 jobs throughout the United States. So we're talking about changing people's lives. So when I talk about the ecosystem, and what I want to do is ensure that the residents of Mesa, residents of Maricopa, are trained to take on this new challenge and get these new skills. And so that is so important. And again, it's important that we get that word out to the community. So I am so happy to be in this role. It did not come easily. It did not come without many, many years of learning and adversity, and I have a long journey. But when you finally get to one of my major goals is to become a college president, it's important that I do something in the seat, not just have the title, as we were talking about earlier. The title is the title, but what do you do with it? When you're in a position of power and influence, as one of my mentors said, what are you going to do with that role? So it's really important that I continue to live in this space. It's not about me. It's not about Tammy Robinson. It's really about how I use the role to help the community, help others, and I do a lot of I like to go around to a lot of the different schools, and I talk to the women's basketball team, and I introduce myself to them around my first or second week, and they didn't know who I was. And when I said I was a president, I don't think they really knew what that was. But I saw some of them yesterday, and they were like, they came up to me, and they were so excited because if you don't see something or see someone in a space, you can't dream of yourself in it. You can't dream of yourself as an astronaut because you don't know any. You can't dream of yourself as an engineer. What kind of engineer? You don't even know there are different types of engineers. And so when you talk about a college president, how can I say I want to be that when I've never even met one? So all of these things become so important in this role and encapsulated in it. And so if I think about the enormity of the work I have to do, I wouldn't get out of bed. I was just like, I can't do that. That's not me. Who is that? But I'm honored to serve, and I'm equipped to serve. I've done the work. And I think more than anything is I'm honored, and I really, really love this work. And I hope I exude that to everyone. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
In my dad's language, they say, Hawa, Hawa, Wata, Wata, Dona de Goha, Unokana, Ski, Galia. We're really grateful to see you here today, and we'll see you again. And remember, you guys, take care of each other because we are all we have.